I started playing the trumpet at the age of 12, and shortly after that, let's say a couple months or a month and a half after that, I started composing. So I started composing and playing the trumpet right around the same time. And a little after that, I started playing live for people when I was 13. So I consider that I started my musical journey with playing the trumpet, composing, and playing for people all at once. I'm going to be, God willing, 70 years old in December, and hopefully I'll be able to make another couple thousand pieces. And I started composing without asking anybody if I could compose, and I didn't ask nobody to show me how to compose. I just simply got a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil, and I started working. And I worked through the notes that I knew, which was about 4 or 5, or maybe 6 at the most. And the rest of them, I looked in the book to see what it was, and I used them. And as a result, when it was finished, I had a piece with 3 trumpets. And in the next couple of days, I rounded up 2 other buddies to play the music, and they knew less notes than I did. But we would play each note, and if we didn't know the note, we'd take the book and look to see what the fingering was. So after we finished the piece, everybody in the piece knew all the notes, and also I knew something about myself, that I was a composer. The approximation is a much larger view about music creation, and it's almost impossible to understand it by words. It needs some visual context to understand what it means, but essentially I can say this: it has a series of not commands, but a series of notational elements, and various levels of those elements are used in construction of piece. And it uses, other than those symbolic elements, it uses color and certain notions about space, depth, horizontal and vertical elements and stuff like that. And it's a kind of form of music that, of course, has a connection with composition and improvisation, but it's not that. And it's, one could say in a very strange way that it's some way connected with graphic notation, but it's not that either. In fact, it's less graphic notation than anything at all, because in graphic composition, it doesn't require the commands that I have set up for my language. The language has a full, developed symbolic images that express what that musical aesthetic is about. At this stage, I know that Silver Orchestra will do one of the older pieces that we did, which is Central Park. We're going to do that again. There will be a new piece also for Silver Orchestra, and that new piece might incorporate this approximation score that we were just talking about, because it will use voice in it and trumpet as a kind of a double concerto. Okay. In addition to Silver Orchestra, there will be my Mbira ensemble, and that's just the name of it. It's not the instrument that's in the ensemble, but the name of the ensemble is Wadada Leo Smith Mbira. That Mbira ensemble will have Ming Chow Fin on pipa and Pheeroan akLaff on drums. Golden Quartet will play, and it will utilize some of the music from the 10 Freedom Summer collection. But also I would do some of the older pieces that was recorded during the first Golden Quartet with Anthony Davis, Malachi Favors, and Randy and that. do a couple of those pieces. And what else? String quartet. There'll be a new string quartet premiered for voice and trumpet and string quartet, and it's I believe it's string quartet number 9 for me. I've been lucky in life. All of my string quartets that have been completed, I've heard them, and that's kind of unusual for a living composer, but it's not impossible. There's one other group, I believe, Organic, which is a very large ensemble, has 9 performers in it, and although it's not as large as Silver Orchestra. So all told, there should be 6 ensembles. Bobeng Quartet will appear as a quartet on one day and a quintet on the second day, and of course it'll be all different music. The notion about beats often mislead people because they generalize so much about what something is. And really, the truest way to understand something is not to really try to identify it right away, but to let it have its own way of informing you, one, and making that information available to how you process it, as opposed to how you judge it, because I truly believe that no art can be judged by art philosophers or critics or buffs or whoever, or even the artists themselves who made the art of it. They cannot judge it, because if you experience an art experience, be it music or visual, whatever, film, it's with you for life. And that's something that's with you for life can never ever be judged, because if you look at it, it's going to influence your life, whether you like it or dislike it. It's going to be a part of you forever, and you can never get rid of it. Being a composer and a performer and an educator, they all are connected. And how are they connected? In this way. Every one of my pieces, I have to do research for it. Every one of them. No matter whether it has 5-line staff with black notes and white notes on the paper, it has to be researched. And usually I give a little bit of clue about the research in the context of the title. There's always a clue there about the research. But more specifically, if I'm trying to express a certain kind of something in musical terms, I will find a way to make that happen. Okay, and to make that happen, I need to find out some new data or some new information that's going to make it easier for me to transmit that information. The other case is that as a performer and a composer, I've learned to write in a certain way that my composing is not different if I write it for a string quartet or chamber orchestra or for a gamelan ensemble or for an African drum ensemble. The notation I would give, and my golden quartet or any one of my ensembles, the notation I would give all of them is exactly the same. Exactly the same. And therefore, any one of my ensembles can play any of the compositions that I've composed. So what I try to do is make it a universal feel for me, in my universe, which is my ensembles, that all the music looks the same, all the music has the same principles, all the music can be read by all of those or performed by all of those players. And what ends up happening is I gain a relationship with instruments as opposed to gaining a relationship with culture. You see, like if I wrote for the pipa, that's a Chinese instrument, a very old instrument. It's a lute, it has strings on it, it has a belly, you see. If I wrote for it in a way in which its culture has dictated its sound, then I think I've lost my point. I've lost my direction. So what I do is I write for it the same way I write for the trumpet or the bass or whatever, meaning that it should strive to sound like a people, but divorced from its culture. Okay, because then you get into the zone where music is capable of making a bigger or more powerful impact. The space where creativity is the same space. No one knows where it's at, but once you get there, you know that you're there. Because the moment you get there, you become invigorated with these flourishing inspiration. And then you know you're there. If there's no inspiration, you're not there. You know, and you have to keep journeying to get there. But once it's inspired, you become inspired, you're there. One step.